I've worked at Guide Dogs for almost 20 years. It'll be 20 years in January of 2014, so currently 19 and a half years. When I was young, I wanted to be a vet, and then somebody burst that bubble by telling me how many A-levels I needed, which I wasn't going to be achieving. I knew that at that point. So then I started thinking about alternatives, and I was talking with my aunt, who was a puppy walker, and she said, "Have you ever thought about working for Guide Dogs?" And at that point I thought, no, I haven't thought about it, so I looked into it, and that's when Guide Dogs came up. But originally I wanted to be a vet. My advice would be to work hard and get your qualifications, and I know that's a real cliche because everyone said it to me as a youngster and I didn't believe them, and I learned later in life that they were right all along. So definitely work at school and get the qualifications that you need for the job, but also to get some experience, and not just with animals, but also, and not just with dogs, but with a range of animals, because that really builds your confidence. But also with people, and experience with people is just as important, because we do work with people. It's not all about dogs. Becoming more confident and relaxed around people with any kind of disability, because I find that that's a big thing with people. People can be quite unrelaxed around people with disability, and that makes you behave in a strange way and say things that you wouldn't normally say to people, and just sort of getting yourself over that is a big advantage in our job. You train to become a guide dog trainer. It's an on-the-job training programme which lasts for 15 months. So you start off with a couple of dogs and you're supervised 100%, and the person supervising you teaches you what you have to do. And then over the 15-month programme, your supervision levels drop and you start doing more and more by yourself. But you'll continually have assessments and you have targets to meet. So that's for the guide dog trainer. The guide dog mobility instructor role is a 3-year training programme, because obviously it covers a lot more, because you have to cover all the client training as well as the dog training. The difference between the two jobs is guide dog training is working with young dogs when they very first come in for training from the puppy walkers, and that's the first 16 weeks of early training. Then the dogs move on to advanced training, and it's the guide dog mobility instructor that does advanced training, and then they match the dog and the client together and train the client and the dog together, and then they also provide follow-up aftercare and ongoing support for the client and the dog as a unit. When they first come in for training, the dogs are usually around 12 months old, maybe a little bit older depending on the dog's temperament. Prior to coming in for training, they live with families who we call puppy walkers, and they're volunteers, and they have the dogs from around 6 or 8 weeks until they come in for training, and the dogs live with them and they do an awful lot of training, and they bring the dogs up according to our puppy training programme, and they're supervised by puppy training supervisors, and they then, when they come in for training, they already know quite a lot of stuff. Like they've already covered all the obedience, the sits and downs, and they bring them into all the environments that they need to be in. So they'll have already been to train stations, they'll have done trains, buses, busy town centres, all of the environments that they need to be familiar with, that the puppy walkers will have covered, as well as bringing them up to be sociable and nice dogs to live with in the home as well. At any one time, I will have 4 dogs as guide dog trainer. Initially, we're looking at obedience and general behaviour on the lead. So there's no point taking dogs into town if they don't respond to your verbal commands. I can't teach a dog to sit at curbs if they're not responding to the word sit. So the first thing I have to do is make sure that their obedience commands are as they should be. And their responses are good to that, and that they're not pulling on the lead. They're not going to try and chase other dogs, cats, squirrels, anything like that. So it's all about getting the dog to respond to you, but also bonding with the dog so that they've got a rapport and they like you, and you've got a bit of a relationship there as well. Because sometimes when you're going into busy town conditions, the work for the dog can get a little bit stressful, so they need to know that they've got you there as a backup, and that you know, they can rely on you. And then we're moving on to introducing the dog to sit at curbs, going around obstacles and allowing enough room for the handler, and in shops, cafes, all the social side as well. My favourite part of the job, I think, is just being out on a nice day with the dogs. It's just me and the dogs, and I can just get on with my job, and everything's going really well, and the sun's shining, and everybody says, "Oh, you're so lucky to have an outdoor job." And I think, yeah, I am.